Hello, Internet. This is Open Source Live May edition, and these are my monthly reviews slash public accountability uh, on the path to migrate to Silicon Valley and join top organization in longevity, doing a best guess craft. So I still have some guesses, and while I develop mastery in it, work in the organization using that craft. I assume this will take 1 2 years, so we're just third month in, but pretty long journey, I'd say. And all this is a sub goal of a bigger mission to make dev optional. There are many reasons why I think it's good, both individually and societally. At the end of the day, I think people not dying when they don't want to is a good thing, and we should strive for that. Yeah, and so we've done a few already, and so I'll try to provide a bit more structure this time. And so you can see how it's like evolutionary, how the evolution of reviews goes. So what would be the structure for today is basically we'll start with where am I currently, right? What is the strategy to get to Silicon Valley, right, to point B, basically? What are the main risks as we go from point A to point B? What do we do to address them, of course? And so what projects I'm betting on to get me from point A to point B. And then we go over, okay, how did what is it, May go? What are the goals? What were the goals? How were the mistakes and learnings? And what are the goals for the next one? All right. So where am I currently? I started now adding the day count. I think it's a pretty good forcing function. So basically, the past, I'd say 3 months, but the past, especially months, was mainly focused on finishing the business bachelor. And now I have only 4 days left until this is done. So that's the minus of, again, I guess, doing monthly reviews is where occasionally you are, in the mid, like in between two phases. So let's say some of the goals of this review might be not perfect because if I were recording them 4 days ago, in 4 days, I would have a bit more clarity and just know what exactly I want to do, because a bit also closer and not in the middle of exams. But that's what it is, just some trade-offs. And yeah, so basically, for now, I still have not a lot of biology knowledge because I was focusing on finishing my bachelor and finishing with exams. My leading guess has not really changed a lot. It's still machine learning. And again, that is because the focus was on making sure I don't fuck up the business bachelor and still have my visa to live in Netherlands. I have savings for 3 4 months, and we'll try to keep a bit more rigid overview of my budget because it's one of the main risks. And right now, I still live in Netherlands, and if my finishing of business bachelor is successful, and I do not see where exactly it can fuck up now, then I'll have 1 more year visa in Netherlands. I'm from Ukraine, also grew up majorly in Russia, so I don't have EU, so I have to be pretty rigid about how do I stay in the country. Um, yeah, and so basically, as I was finishing with my business bachelor and just passing the exams, that is of no interest. My thesis was of quite interest, and it's basically the name I decided on it is something like grand priorities and trade-offs of longevity scientists. And instead of doing something soul-sucking and unimportant, I decided to work on something pretty hard but actually impactful for the industry. And I did that, and basically I submitted the thesis, but it's in the end stages for publishing it online for everyone, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So that's a project which is like in the making. It's kind of a teenager. It's already definitely not a baby. It's already somewhat formed, but now we need to decide what kind of an adult it is that we throw away, throughout, maybe not throw away, to the adult world, right? So day 96. So yeah, that's a brief overview. To be honest, I feel not nice about the progress because I'm like, well, it's been 96 days and I still don't have a lot of biology knowledge and a lot of machine learning knowledge. And I'm like, or like at least I haven't tested it. And I'm like, well, what the fuck I was doing? But then looking back, I'm like, well, I clearly was doing. And I think basically the most of my time, while business bachelor takes a bit to finish, it's a business, it's not so hard. So definitely not the most of my time. The most of my time was definitely spent on making thesis actually useful and interesting for the industry. And so I think that is a good project in the given the um, guardrails or criteria I had at the moment, that I have to write something that is good for the university and is actually interesting for the industry, and also given my current capabilities. So yeah, we'll talk about that project in a bit. And then when you look at it's kind of fine, but the forcing function is definitely there now. So what is my strategy of going from where we are right now which is not a lot, to be honest, to go into Silicon Valley and joining longevity organization and so on. Right. So the kind of strategy is a buzzword, and I try to avoid it. And I generally try to avoid buzzwords. But here, the general big approach is that we do ambitious personal projects and we share it with others. And those projects have to have certain criteria in them. And those criteria are that they help me to develop world-class understanding of biology and longevity of science. They maybe they don't have to be ambitious to just test my craft, but eventually, once I test the craft and I see that's a good craft and I double down on it and I want to develop mastery in it, I have to use my mastery to make projects with that craft that are ambitious and can be shared with others. Um, and then financially wise, basically we try to live as frugally as possible. And occasionally it would be super great if those projects also earn me a bit of money. Worst case scenarios, it could be that I try to work on the side, probably in the longevity industry, probably part-time job somewhere in Silicon Valley. So it's not entirely useless. Like, I don't know, working in the supermarket where I don't just get a bit of money, but also develop some career capital, just minimal. Um, yeah, but financially wise, a few other ways to solve it we'll talk about in a minute. And specifically, those projects have to be about fulfilling O1 visa criteria, because the way I'm going to get my leading guess of how I'm going to get to Silicon Valley is through O1 visa. So we really have to think pretty rigorously of like, okay, what are the requirements for O1 visa? And nearly like, well, how do we reverse engineer? Okay, going like working from the requirements of what projects I should work on, and not the other way around, where I have some guesses of a project and then I'll try to fit them into the O1 criteria. Which I think was a part of what has happened in my thesis, but I still can shape it in a way that fits with O1 criteria. And when thinking of like, well, how does this kind of like look like as an equation? I will not put some math stuff here because I'm not sure how it really interacts. It's like all multiplication or something, you know, or should I put it in the root square? Like, it's a bit stupid. But the point is, the important inputs are how well I know longevity science, how good of a fit is my craft, and how much mastery I have in it, and then using those in the high quality projects that have a lot of impact, and making sure that all while I'm doing that, I have enough finance just to sustain myself, nothing fancy. And the outputs of this equation is that one, I do projects that fulfill O1 criteria, and two, have a positive impact on the industry, because I mean that's how you break in. I assume you get hired, and that's generally what I want to do. It's not that you just do projects for the sake of projects or something. It's that if one wants to make that optional, one has to do projects which are useful for it. Let me take a sip. Okay, so let's talk about main risks, right? With that kind of strategy in mind, from A to B, where are the main roadblocks? Where are we most likely to get fucked up? I think poor project vetting, and specifically choosing projects which are unimpactful and then not being ruthless enough with their scope and fucking it up, is one of the main risks. I think that was one of the main mistakes I've actually made in my self-education year, where I would not be extremely explicit about, oh, this is the project I'm betting on. And also, I would definitely not be explicit and ruthless with the scope. Um, yeah, I was really bad on the scope, I'd say. This is one of the biggest mistakes. So basically, just as with any great company, it is a bad investment at a very high price. With any project, with any cool project, it's a bad investment if it takes too long, at a bad resource price. And that's definitely what happened, I think, with David, where I took 5 months, which is definitely an overkill, and I spent too much time at the end of it, waiting with publishing. So I probably could have done the whole project in 3.5 months, max maybe 4 with publishing and everything, and maybe also cut some things which are not essential but nice to haves. And I could have got similar return, but at a significant decrease in my investment, right? And I think that's a pretty big mistake. And so that's the main thing I'm trying to avoid here, is just being very explicit of like what projects I'm genuinely betting on, specific explicit process of here are my kind of seeds and guesses for what projects I could work on. Given these goals, which ones I should try to develop a bit more, and then try to maybe bet on them heavily and kind of investigate each interesting seed, and then be very explicit of like well, how much the scope, how much this project is worth, how much I'm willing to invest resources of that project. Is it 1, 2 weeks? Is it 3, 4 weeks? And so on. So being much more ruthless about it is how I plan to address it. Um, for budget management is a real risk because I have only a few months left and no clear specific plan of how I plan to resolve that risk. So I have a few guesses, but yeah, it's pretty important. So one way I'll address it is just monthly spending KPI. Put it this way, right? Just being pretty explicit of like how much I want to spend a month and whether I'm doing it or not. Controlling for a number of months and saving. And a few ways I think of addressing for budget management. By far the best guess would be the best way to solve it would be getting fellowships because that also helps me with O1 criteria. And it's enough where I can, if I get a fellowship, I might sustain myself for next 6 months, next 12 months, which is a big win and not just, 1, 2 months wins. Second guess would be do side jobs, do part-time jobs in Silicon Valley longevity companies online. It's not perfect because it takes time, but at least it's not entirely useless like working in a supermarket and I still develop some career capital. Three can be taking a loan from personal close friends. Actually, I have a few people who have good trust in me and we have great relationships, and they, while not being rich themselves, always said like they're willing to help me out in this situation, which I feel very genuine about. Yeah, so third risk is poor feedback loop of testing guesses and being overly biased. I'm not sure if that was a mistake in my self-education year. I took a while to learn software engineering and coding and web development, but that was because I genuinely wanted to learn it very deeply and very well. So I have a very strong trunk of the tree, and then I can develop, all the branches. So I don't feel bad about that, and I think there I was pretty fast to abandon the guess when I realized it would not fit with my goals. So I realized that I want to work on making that optional. And yeah, I didn't try to pursue web development for longer because I understood that regardless of how beautiful the website I build and how nice it is to use, it's probably not helping with making that optional. So the most impactful thing. And so I was pretty fast to abandon it. So I feel pretty nice about it. Yeah, and so killing it is like one is just it's very hard, but being genuinely truth seeking of like what is genuinely the best guess to make it, try not to fool yourself, but it's remarkably hard not to fool yourself. And be pretty explicit about applying, okay, what is the cheapest, we have this guess of, let's say, machine learning. What is the cheapest way to test it? And we, like, not, a few months here and there, but what is the cheapest way? And that goes for any guess, of course. And then once we test it, being quite genuine about, okay, good or not good? Now, the last risk is underestimating the time it takes to learn biology and craft sufficiently to get in. I think it's basically one is about management of expectations. If you think something will take 12 months and then it takes 24 months, you probably will abandon the journey somewhere on like 15, 16 months because you just poorly manage your expectations and you were not ready for it. And it takes long and you're just like, yeah, fuck it. So just being fine with that, the journey will probably take 2 years, to be honest, like leading guess. But it can take 3 years, and that's fine. And even if it takes 3 years, it means it will still be worth it, but probably somewhere along the line, I probably made poor project betting or fucked up with the scope of them. Or maybe the budget management didn't work out as well, so I didn't get fellowships and so on, and working part-time took too long. But managing expectation that it can take a while, and that's fine. So 3 years, it's fine. It would still be worth it. And then having a viable plan in case it takes 2, 3 years. So just like it's fine if it doesn't take a year, and it's not like this. That was really that was really nice. Okay. Yeah, and being fine with okay, what do we do if it takes long? Do we have a plan, or do we just die and go bankrupt or something like this, right? Yeah. So coming to what projects I'm betting on, basically, definitely mostly. How are we on time? Yeah, 14 minutes. That's good. 14 minutes. I have to be quick. So leading project from Bestimol is basically what I have worked at the thesis is the grant priorities and trade-offs of longevity sciences. I'll talk about it, I think, maybe in a minute, but okay, actually, maybe I should talk now. Basically, the project is addressing the problem of we found longevity sciences and in longevity industry in general, funding is one of the main bottlenecks. yet no one knows what longevity scientists care about, and they're kind of the powerhouse of the industry. They're an important piece, and if we don't know what an important piece that is doing all the science and actually all progressing of the industry wants, how can we fund them efficiently? So while I might not be able with my bachelor thesis to solve a major problem and attract a lot of funding, I think a lot of people are working on attracting a lot of funding. I probably can, by just understanding what scientists care about, and longevity scientists specifically, I can increase the quality of investing of those dollars, right? So specifically, we were looking at how much scientists are willing to pay of total grant money for increasing the freedom and speed with which they rely on freedom and time and so on, right? So we took a few variables. And so basically, if general NH grant is around 600,000 for 3 years, how much of that money they're willing to give away if you give them a bit more freedom on the topic they can choose to work on? If you take the app, if you instead of replying minimum in 8 months, which is the speed of NH, you reply maybe in 4 months. Like how much each month is worth. And I pretty much can tell you the results, but I also cannot because it's still not published. But I know ballpark it will be. I can tell you it's like a ballpark a dozen of thousands of euros for increasing 1 month, and a ballpark a dozen of euros for increase in 1% of freedom. That's pretty crazy. And I think what's a good part about it is like pretty much everyone knows that it's going to be a crazy number. It knows it's going to be a lot, but no one has done the calculations just to know what is the number. So anyone who is the first one to just assign a number to what everyone pretty much believes, I think can reap a lot of benefits. And that's I think the good part of this thesis is that it provides quite specific numbers we can talk about when we make those decisions of how should we fund scientists. And so basically what it has done in the past months is just kind of cut this project enough, scope it enough, so I can just submit it for the business bachelor while I do all the analysis and so on. And I do get all my responses because we're doing a survey of several grant options and seeing which ones scientists will choose on. But just get enough, make it good enough so the university question can be closed. And so that's something we'll work on this month, is making sure that we finish this project well enough where it can actually be sent online and published online, right? Because these are very different criteria setting for if you want to maximize your impact and in the industry, so people kind of talk about it, or you want to just get a high, even high grade for bachelor's, entirely different conversation. And so while I have kind of the essence of it, let's now shape the project finally so we can publish it online and reap its benefits. So that's one of the things. And yeah, I think specifically, let me check the time again, 18. One has to be quite, I understood that I have to pretty significantly take the O1 requirements and really work from them and not the other way around. And so kind of really the project I'm betting on here is that I shape this thesis in its final, because it's still a teenager, it's not entirely developed, but I shape its final development in a way that helps me get O1 requirements. And I specifically will be going for press and media and publications or scholarly articles. Maybe major contribution to the field, but yeah. So given those, if I'm trying to go for those two requirements, how should I shape the final stages of this project so I get them done and I get the benefits of them? Right, get the desired output. And that's one of the things I'll be looking at this month and next month. Another project I'm betting on is basically I need to solve my funding problem. And I'll start with prepping for fellowships. And once I publish my thesis and grant priorities and so on, I'll kind of, you probably want to apply on a whim. And so I'll apply for fellowships once I have this done and published, because I think it's much better. Yeah, you probably get higher chances. And I have to be fast enough, like 1 2 months max, because again, I don't have a lot of funding left. And if that doesn't work out, then we go to loans or we go to working as a side work. We start with fellowships. I think it's a good bet. And because getting fellowships was also helped me with O1 requirements, like prizes and awards, or I think probably membership in our organization. Yeah, so that's also pretty important. Right. So now we come to testing and no guesses. Basically, I think one of the cheapest and best guesses, well, I can do like a one lecture about the metal and like try to code neural network on my own. I kind of already had done a course on elements of machine learning and I really enjoyed it. I think CS50I is a bit, is also a good start if you want to learn things genuinely. And it's also they provide real problems, and so you can see how it feels. Because I love coding. I'm coding, but I've done the website development. And this is slightly different than I assume machine learning. I'm interested in like how exactly similar it is, and if it's as similar as I guess it to be, then I think the guess would pay off, and it's a good guess, and we keep on going with it. It's enjoyable enough for me. Yeah. Um, and CS50I seems to be, I think, a good start. So how do we? And the project I'm betting on learning longevity science is just reading biology books, and specifically Campbell biology. It's called. Yeah, why I think I've talked about it, but I think if you want to learn to like really, really fast understand and actually have a lot of impact, that you want to do that, you can't do just university courses. Even university courses from best universities in the world, like MIT, Harvard, and so on. I obviously not going to do the bachelor in biology because it takes forever. It's too expensive, and my learning is not even that good as if I just did this. I think all courses in universities are based on textbooks, and so textbooks are actually kind of the final source of truth. There are no sources of truth, you know. I've said it dated for 5 months, so I know all the Karl Popper stuff. But you know, anyway, and so you just have to read the book. And I think here it's also like maybe those two projects don't have to be ambitious in a way that you can share it with others and tell how remarkable it is. It's pretty cool that I can read a book or something in biology and understand it on my own and learn it and not do bachelor. But I'm not sure how much more of your market is. And so here I just have to be as fast as possible and choose things that develop my knowledge and mastery the fastest way possible. And I think reading textbooks is one of the fastest way to do it. And last project, my voice is pretty weak today. And last project is open source life. I'm betting on that spending like half a day every month or around a day every month and just going over, okay, what I've done this month, what is my general plan for it, what is my general strategy for it is a good use of, okay, 22 minutes, we're fine. It's a good use of my time. It's also helps me to stay publicly accountable, and I work really well with that. Choose challenging enough goals, and also for people that will be viewing this afterwards, you know, like in a year or so when I'll be applying for jobs and so on, or in general, it's a much better than any CV and so on because one can see how I progress for a pretty long time, working on pretty hard challenges and how I navigate the maze. And there's nothing better than seeing what I think about every month and how I think about it. Right. So it's a good use of my time for one day. So now we come to goals and how did we go? The past months go and this month's go. So let's start with May. Basically, the main focus of May was to finish the thesis and submit it well. Of course, the exams and so on, that was never an issue. And keep up with the budget. And because I wanted to do a thesis that is worthy of remark and good enough, I kind of prioritized it and didn't do any ML or biology stuff. And the main goal was to submit a passable thesis version by 23rd of May. In fact, I'm very proud. It fucking worked. I past months talked about how like I hope I come next month, but this yeah, it fucking worked. It was pretty hard. I kind of stopped saying that pretty hard is like bad for some. I don't know why I had it, but I guess general societal views that if something is hard, then it's bad. But it was hard. It was hard, and it was very good. Because challenging projects is by far the best way for me to work. I was very focused and being pretty consistently excellent, just working on main risks of the projects and getting my hours perfectly well, just being very focused on what I work on. And specifically, I think the main learnings of the months is really doing well with the scoping of the project. I cut off a big chunk of the thesis pretty much like 3 days before the deadline. Because I was like, well, I don't have time for this, and I should just get this done. So this goal is fucking submitted, and I feel very proud. Yeah, these ones are fine. KPIs, basically hours worked. I did 265 hours, which is 8.8 hours a day. Good numbers, because these are real numbers. You know, not just being around the library counting as work. Yeah, I feel proud on that number. I don't feel proud on. I decided the KPIs of week spent were 100 less 40 euros. It's a bad KPI. I will do total spend in a month, and this month it was 1.4k. I think this is a lot, and I think this was a failure as a goal. So keeping up with the budget didn't go well. May and goals, thesis and goals went thesis and went amazing, and work hours went amazing. Yeah, and the listening sport days, I'm keeping up those two. I'll keep to myself, but I have a streak of 47 days doing sport every day, which I feel good about. Now coming and actually, let me write down because I realized something. Um, yeah, I think it's here. So, um, okay, how are we on time? 25 minutes. Yeah, we're fine. So, what are the goals for June? We're trying to be a bit more explicit with our goals and specific. Let's put it this way. So, specific numbers, specific timelines. Um, well, again, I'm recording this kind of midway between finishing exams and being done with my bachelor, so it's not the perfect timing, but I spent a few days just trying to understand what are we trying to do. And while some of these might change, I don't think so. In the next, once I'm done with my bachelor in 4 days, general goal is basically while we have done our thesis and kind of the essence of it is done, it's a developed teenager. We know what would be kind of the results and where we're going, the problem we're solving, and how we're solving it. We have a survey. I have collected 55, something like this, 54 real scientists that have answered. Oof, I hope the sounding wasn't too bad because here was the microphone. Um, of real scientists answering real questions. I have real data on this. But now the point is, you can't publish anything that has 54 respondents. I doubt the results will change ballpark. But to be taken seriously and have real impact, you want much more respondents. So I'm going to aim for getting at least from 100 to 150. And the way to do it is just to scale the emails I was sending because they work. So just the solution to it is just to send 3,000 emails basically this month, which is around 150 emails a day because I have 23 days left. So then with machine learning is just to finish CSAI and have a conclusion on it. How does it feel? How is it different from coding and web development? Then with biology is to finish unit 1, page 92. This is around 3 pages a day, and that's pretty a lot if I want to really understand them well and explain to 10-year-olds, and that's the only way I'm learning stuff. I want to be the fastest deep learner I know of. Yeah, and so that's like 3 pages a day. That's like 4.5 hours a day, which is a lot. And then prep for fellowships with publishing past writing. I have past writing that I haven't published, and I think I should do it. And I think it's helped me with fellowships and just organize the online presence I have. And so let's see the time, 2 minutes. Okay. KPIs. KPIs basically we're going to a bit up the number of work hours and get the average above 270 hours, which is basically above 9 working hours a day on average. And I think this is pretty doable, pretty good, but it requires quite consistent and challenging work. My chore spend is basically, well, there are some things like rent, which I don't include in my chore spend, or like some subscriptions, which are not variable really because I will use them all the time, like Remnote. The reason spend I can control, like groceries and so on, and just chores. And the goal is to have this less than 1,000 euros, which is pretty challenging, but doable. And listening, sport days is just keep up the streak, and listening, thankful days, I'll keep to myself. Whew. Right, I forgot we have mistakes and learnings, and I have 1 minute. Basically, I think the main learning is that one is that my best working time is between 8 and 13:30, and I should take this pretty seriously and think of it as like deep meditative work, kind of get in the tank and get the hardest work done there, like like coding. Then also scope the work. I understood it with thesis. Just get the right parts in, just get the essence so it's good enough for the goal you have, and don't try to overwork and do all nice to haves. Then work from the highest uncertainty task first. It's basically from the Shape Up book, and they start all project with the highest uncertainty first, and then once they figure out all the highest uncertainty, then they go and execute the projects. I found that to be very, very fucking true and very important learning. And yeah, one of the main mistakes I make is when the challenge is actually too easy, I actually much more likely to fail it because I become so relaxed. So just one way to count it is just to know of it and remember it, but also is just to always have hard challenges to go for, like this month. Um, yeah, bad mistakes with spending, and yeah, take the morning hours pretty seriously. To my pleasureful surprise, I found that whole recording stopped, and so I didn't record the last few seconds, but that's fine. Also, I found out that half of the recording is in awful quality. Um, yeah, this one is fine because microphone was in my back, not in front of me, which is perfect. But a perfect mistake to solve for next open source live. So sorry for those I'm listening. Um, yeah, and I also figured out I can merge, so I have no limit on 30 minutes, but that's fine. I want to limit those to 30 minutes. Um, so yeah, these are the main mistakes. Just taking the first 5 hours seriously, being ruthless on spending, doing the best work in those first 5 hours. When you choose the project, scope the work correctly, and start with the highest uncertainty task first to eliminate all the highest uncertainty things, so you know exactly what you need to do, and you don't have unknown risks. And avoid relaxing when the challenge is too easy, or just choose hard challenges, and then it's not an issue. Um, and so these are the goals, and I see you next month. Have have a pleasureful June, and yeah, good day. Cheers.